Good day. Eamon here from Ashdown Farm. Firstly, just apologise for my voice. I have a touch of a cold, a spring cold. So look, I said I'd hop on today, just put up a video, and I'm doing it inside, and it's probably in response to some of the questions that have been asked over the last few videos. And a couple of questions came in from one particular farmer that he's finding farming difficult. Well, he's finding dairy farming difficult. And I was going to write back to him, but I said I'd do a video on it, and maybe just to give you my probably a little bit of a story about my life and what I found difficult, and the trials and tribulations of dairy farming, and where I am today now of 68 years of age, semi-retired, and just finished farm, just in from work now this evening about 5:30 on a Friday evening. And we're just finishing the cows. Kenneth is milking, and we should be finished about 6 o'clock or thereabouts. So I started farming when I was 16. I left school, came home from school, picked to start farming a small farm at the time. It was maybe 10 or 12 cows, a little bit of growing your own barley and oats, your own potatoes, a lot of beef cattle, some bit of rented land taken, and my father would do some contract work as well, some hire work. He started out with a Ferguson 20 and then progressed to a 35 and that. And I was a family of 9. I was in the family. I came in the middle, and at the same time when we came home from school, there were still 3 of my younger brother and sisters still at school. My older, and the same year I finished, my 2 sisters finished as well. They had done their leaving cert, and they had gone off to do nursing at the time, is to train to be nurses, and to this day they're still nursing, or they're retired now at this stage. But I came home. My 2 older brothers. One of them was in Australia that stage, and the other brother was in the bar business. And my oldest brother was killed when he was 18 in a car accident. I was 9 year old, and then I had a younger sister, a younger brother, and then another younger sister. So there was 4 girls and 4 boys alive, as saying goes, and thank God they're all still alive, and that. So I come home that time to a very probably old-fashioned father and mother. Got involved probably in Mockra at a young age, and I was involved in Mockra even at that stage, and I had a huge interest in trying to learn about farming. Wanted to go to Ag College at the time. Was my biggest dream, was to go to Ag College. Wasn't very academic at school. My father didn't agree with Ag College. He reckoned it would made, I don't even like using the bad language on YouTube, that he'd make each out of young fellas and drive them mad to come home with these wonderful wild ideas. But I started learning and picking up from my fellow farmers that was probably more progressive at that stage. And we had just have joined the EEC at that stage. But look, I'm not going through it step by step, but we started out there that time, and we started then borrowing a bit of money, borrowing some money to expand the cows. Brucellosis was quite prevalent at that stage, and TB was quite prevalent, particularly brucellosis. And you were doing tests in that time, and you could lose 2 or 3 cows. You got a bit of compensation. You had to go back out then and buy in cows, and it was hard to start to building up a herd of cows at the time. And at the same time, there's a farm beside us taken over by the Land Commission, the Irish Land Commission time, and that was divided a few years later, and we got a land that was away from us. We gave it up, and we got a block of land, and we got some extra land. So it meant that we had a good block of land, around 80 acres in the one block, that we could start dairying. And that was my goal and my dream, was to get 60 cows and paddock race them and do all that. And we progressed through that through the 70s, and fighting with Department of Brucellosis and all the rest. Borrowed some money and started building silage pits and building the milking parlour, and bought a new tractor at the time as well, and a slurry spreader, and with a nice little bit of money borrowed. And interest rates at times started creeping up, and we had a credit squeeze in 79. and that put us under a lot of pressure. And I had to say, at that stage I was dating Mary, and then 2 years later we got married, and we had to work through a lot of very, very high borrowings at the time, because during the late 70s we were badly able to just to meet the interest. At the time it had gone to about 21%. The older members of the people that listen to YouTube will remember that. So that was very, very challenging. And at the same time then, we were getting to work our way a little bit through that. We had a good. The only thing was that milk prices wasn't too bad, and beef cattle prices. We would that time we were doing beef cattle, not beef cattle, store cattle. We would keep a lot of our calves as well. My father was very fond of keeping the cattle, and we had land taken and all the rest. So we ended up in offloading a lot of the cattle and paying down a big chunk of the debt that we had in the bank, and restructured it, and maybe starting from there in around 86 or 7. And we started probably then, Mary and myself, we had a farm at this stage, and we're very focused on dairy, and we kind of got away from all the beef cattle, and we just concentrated on the cows and that, and we worked our way through with super levy and all the rest, and we managed to buy a couple little bits of land as well. But it was always challenging. My wife was a full-time mum, because we ended up then with 4 children. My first son that was born was, that Kenneth is on the farm now, was born with a hole in the heart, and he needed a lot of minding when he was a little baby. And Mary felt that nobody could mind her as good as she would, and rightly so. And like we probably sacrificed foreign holidays and various different, maybe a luxury house, for the fact that Mary stayed at home, and we lived in a modest enough house, and we had always probably plenty to eat and plenty of good clothes, and we went on an Irish holiday, but we never went on foreign holidays. And it was always challenging. It was always challenging, particularly when you're on your. My father was getting older at that stage and doing very little work, and I was doing the whole thing myself as well. And Mary would give you a helping hand, but at this stage she had 2 children, and they were in school, and then we had. In the late 80s, and then in the 90s we had Fintan was born with Down syndrome, and that was presented another challenge. And Fakra then about 2 years later was born. So we had 2 in secondary school, a couple, one at home and maybe one in national school, and Fintan with special needs and all the rest. That it was always, a challenge. And we at all this time as well, we were trying to fighting with the department on super levy, and always in trouble. It's trying to watch that you weren't oversupplying, and try to lease a bit of quota here and there, and we end up buying a bit of land with quota. It was always very challenging. Then in the late 90s we started looking at doing the extended grazing, and we started then doing a bit of that extended grazing through the New Zealand. There was a girl called Bryony Foster, and Leonie Fitzgerald was over here as well, and they were very good at telling you how to manage grass. And we learned a good bit that time of trying to get the cows out early, and try to expand the grazing season, and try to cut down the cost of expensive meal and housing, and the cost of spreading slurry and all the rest. And at the same time we're at liquid milk, and we got an opportunity to buy another chunk of liquid quota, and that was a little bit of I did a U-turn that time myself, which looking back wasn't the smartest thing. We probably got very focused on liquid milk, with about 80% of our milk was liquid at that stage, and we're getting a premium, a reasonably good premium. I was involved in farmer politics as well. I was IFA county chair, and I was national chair, and I was very involved on boards of this as well, at the same time running my farm. And it was always challenging, especially when you're on your own, because like my wife Mary, with the best intentions in the world, she wasn't able to pick up very much of the slack if I was gone. I had farm relief in helping me. A fellow called John Bray used to do a lot of the work for me, do a lot of the milking for me when I was away. But most of the time it was I did it all myself, and farming was definitely challenging. But then when Kenneth came home, Kenneth went and he done physiotherapy, and when Kenneth came home then, in the late, I think it was 0.8, 0 maybe 9, 10. It was during the recession as well, and at that as well, I had bought property in Dublin as well, during the noughties as well, and I was trying to deal with that as well, and we were very high at that stage. We're a high cost system. We're putting out a good lot of milk. We even went at one stage 3 times a day milking. We're feeding a lot of meal. We're buying maize from neighbouring farms. We're buying in a lot of concentrates. We had a lot of high yielding cows, very wholesaling cows. We're into wholesaling Frisian breeders as well, winning a few prizes and various different things like that. And we're still we're still managing grass very well and all the rest, but we're still putting in far too much bought in feed, such as bought in rented land. We had a lot of land rented. We had buying in maize. We had up to maybe, 70, 80, 75, 80 cows at one stage, and very, 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 very busy, and not making any much progress until one May that we hardly, the May milk check came, and that should be getting into a reasonably good milk check, and it was a very poor milk check, and we weren't getting the yields of the cows. It was a wettish year, and the amount of bills that we owed to Glanbia and to various different people, when we took those out of it, we hadn't money for groceries for ourselves. So Kenneth and myself, we sat down, and Marion, the whole of us, and we looked at, and we started then switching completely to high EBIs, went away from 3 times a day milking, getting back, taking the maize out of the system, selling off some of the cows, because we needed some cash of a hurry to pay off a bill that we had, and we sold off maybe 8 or 10 cows in Heifers and Carnaross, got good money for them, and that took us out of the hobbit and really focused on our mind. And we got back to about 65 or 6 cows at that stage. We offloaded the following year, offloaded some expensive rental land that we had, and got down to farming, into a different type of farming, what we're at today. And I suppose that was the real turning point. It took probably maybe 3 or 4 years to come back to the point that we're at now, to get to where we're on the road that we were on now. That our cows now is we're up to about 250, 245, I think, or maybe 250. I'm not 100% sure, but between 240 and 250 is the EBIs of our cows, and our heifers are much higher than that, we've good high fat and protein. We've cut back around 60 odd cows. We've one piece of land leased. We sell off all the bull calves. We're making decent profit, and we have a much, much better quality of life. The last few years, we're doing long over €1,000 a cow profit, and we are trying to push that to 12 or 1400 euros per cow, and still have a good time. Now, Kenneth will be finished now at 6 o'clock, and he'll milk in the morning, do jobs, and then he'll take a few hours off in the middle of the day from 10 o'clock in the morning till about 4 in the evening time. He can help out with keeling or do the lawns or do whatever he wants to do, and he's back out, and I'll be there to help him as well. I'm finished this evening. As I say, it's after 6 o'clock, after only 5:30, and I have time to do this YouTube video with you. But to answer the question that man asked about if he's finding farming hard, the reason we're finding it hard is because dairy farmers have too many cows. They're too heavily stocked. They have too much rented land. They're too fragmented, and there's far too much machinery around the place. And maybe beef cattle as well. If you could just focus and strip back your farm to a dairy farm, whatever is on the farm has to be producing milk. Anything that doesn't produce milk, because a cow will give you about €3,000, at least €3,000 a day of milk, of value. Right? Every year. €3,000, and if you do that, your cost rate, you should be making between €1,000 and €1,500 a cow profit. Get rid of your beef cattle. Get rid of all this rented land and maybe this leased land. And for God's sake, get rid of half the machinery around the place. Keep one good tractor to feed your cattle and do your topping and clean out your sheds. And there's plenty good contractors out there that will spread your slurry, spread your fertiliser, and even move your cattle if you want to. And you'll have a much, much easier life and a lot more money in your pocket, and be able to spend time with your wife, your girlfriend, your children, or whoever you have, that you're not in the yard 7 days a week till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. Because I did that myself when I was on my own with beef cattle and everything, and it's tough. And I would not like to see Kenneth doing that now. But thank God he won't, and he's very sensible about, and he doesn't want to end up with 300 or 400 cows. Okay, if he got a farm of land, he was able to milk 300 or 400 cows, he'd do it, but he'd still make sure that he was finished at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening. And he'd have enough of be able to manage it right. And it doesn't matter the number of cows you have. You could have 1,000 cows, and if you have enough of help around the place and manage it right, and you take a lot of shitty work, get rid of a lot of shitty work, making sure whatever you are doing is 50, 60 euros an hour work. Not sitting on a tractor spreading the slurry that you can get a young fella to do it for 10 euros an hour. Sit on a tractor. You are too smart and too clever for that. You need to be managing your grass, managing your cows, managing your breeding program. And let the guys with the big machinery and the young fellas fly in and out with the big slurry tankers, the fertiliser spreaders and the silage harvesters, and do it. And when it breaks down, you can go in and have a cup of tea, and they have all the headaches, and you have the money to pay them, whatever the price it is, whether it's 100 euros an acre or 150 euros an acre. Don't be cribbing with them over the price, because they earn every bloody penny of it. And you make sure that you look after your contractor financially, that you have them every year. We have two very, very good contractors. We have David Corring that spreads our slurry and fertiliser, and we have James Brady up the road that does our silage, our bale silage and our pit silage, and we're blessed to have both of them. And as I say to Kenneth, and look after your contractors, look after your vet, and they're the important people. And forget about all these other salesmen that's coming in trying to sell you stuff and delay your time. This is a very long video, but that's what I'm saying is that we need to be very focused on running your dairy farm. Eamon here on this Friday evening, signing off.